The film begins with a scene featuring Billy Grant, a dedicated and experienced police officer. One night, he receives a call about a noise complaint at a local party. Billy heads to the scene with his partner, Spinelli. When they arrive, they find a chaotic house full of loud music, people, and commotion. As they make their way through the crowd, Billy spots two men causing trouble. To avoid escalating the situation, Billy approaches them calmly, hoping to resolve the issue without violence. Unfortunately, one of the men reacts aggressively, launching an attack on Billy. Thanks to his excellent training and unarmed combat skills, Billy is able to defend himself and subdue the attacker. However, during the struggle, the man's head accidentally hits the stairs with a loud, sickening thud. The impact leaves the attacker unconscious and seriously injured. The second man, witnessing the incident, is horrified. He screams in anger and accuses Billy of killing his brother, calling him a murderer and a pig. Spinelli rushes over to the scene and quickly arrests the remaining man. Meanwhile, Billy desperately tries to revive the injured attacker, but it's too late. The man is already dead. This tragic turn of events leaves Billy overwhelmed with guilt. He never intended for anyone to get hurt, let alone die, and the outcome shakes him to his core. Despite the fact that it was an accident, Billy cannot escape the feeling of responsibility for the man's death. The incident haunts him deeply, and after much soul-searching, he decides to resign from the police force. He hopes that by stepping away from his job, he can find peace and move on from the traumatic experience of that night. Several months later, we are introduced to Ken Marks and his mother, who have just moved to a new town after leaving their home in Kansas. Ken's mother is hoping to find better job opportunities, and this move marks a fresh start for both of them. For Ken, this also means starting his senior year of high school in a new environment where he doesn't know anyone. Although he is excited for the change, he is also nervous about fitting in and making friends. On his first day at the new school, Ken's nerves quickly turn to embarrassment. He feels out of place and awkward, unsure of how to interact with his new classmates. Despite his initial struggles, Ken's spirits lift a bit when he notices a girl named Julie in one of his classes. She immediately catches his attention, and he hopes to get to know her better. During lunch, Ken makes a new friend, Mike, who warns him to stay away from Julie, advising that things could get complicated if he tries to get close to her. Ken doesn't fully understand why, but he is determined to talk to Julie anyway. Later that day, Ken visits the library and manages to start a conversation with Julie. They chat briefly, but their interaction is cut short when Tom, the school bully and Julie's boyfriend, spots them together. Tom quickly confronts Ken, demanding to know why he is talking to his girlfriend. Tom's aggressive and possessive behavior is intimidating, and he verbally insults Ken. Fortunately, Julie steps in and diffuses the situation, explaining to Tom that Ken is new and doesn't understand how things work around there. Though she manages to calm Tom down, it's clear that he sees Ken as a threat and won't let this go easily. After school, Tom and his friend Rob, who acts as his loyal sidekick, corner Ken again. They threaten him, warning him to stay away from Julie if he knows what's good for him. Just when the situation seems to be escalating, a janitor steps in to check if everything is all right. The janitor is none other than Billy Grant, who is now working at the school after leaving the police force. Ken and Billy share a brief conversation, and Ken appreciates the older man's kindness, though Ken doesn't know it yet. This moment marks the beginning of a unique and important bond between them. That evening, Tom and Rob head to their local dojo to practice martial arts. They are not just there for training. This dojo is run by Lee, the older brother of the man who died during the altercation with Billy. Lee is a ruthless fighter and has been waiting for an opportunity to exact revenge. When Tom arrives, he meets Kate, Lee's skilled and intimidating henchwoman. Lee is shown to be a brutal leader, and during a training session, he demonstrates his fighting skills by effortlessly taking down a student. The next day at school, Julie seeks out Ken to apologize for how things went the previous day. She understands that he was just trying to be friendly and didn't mean any harm. However, before they can finish their conversation, Tom sees them talking again and becomes furious. He is only calmed down when Rob and Gina, his girlfriend, step in and try to distract him. Tom's jealousy and possessiveness make it clear that he views Ken as an enemy. Later that day, Tom finds Ken alone in the library, along with with Rob, he starts to chase Ken through the school, cornering him near the gym. Just as things are about to get violent, Billy shows up again, stepping in to protect Ken. This time, Billy is more assertive, making it clear that he won't let Tom and Rob continue their bullying. Tom and Rob leave, humiliated and angry, but Ken is grateful for Billy's help. After the incident, rumors began to spread around the school. Some students believe that Ken fought back against Tom and Rob and managed to scare them off. This rumor makes Ken uneasy, as he knows it was Billy who intervened, not him. Ken tries to explain the truth to Mike, but no one seems to fully understand. The situation leaves Ken anxious, worried about what will happen if Tom decides to retaliate. That night at the dojo, Tom's anger is still simmering. He decides to take out his frustration on Rob during a sparring session, but his aggression is uncontrolled. Kate notices the bruises on Tom's face from his earlier run-in with Billy and decides to report this to Lee. Lee is furious when he hears that Tom has failed to assert his dominance. He physically reprimands Tom, warning him that he needs to handle things properly or face serious consequences. The next day at school, tensions are higher than ever. During lunch, Tom confronts Ken again. This time, he is even more aggressive, having heard rumors that Ken is taking credit for standing up to him. Ken tries to explain, but Tom refuses to listen. He brutally beats Ken, using his martial arts skills to humiliate him in front of everyone. Ken is left bruised and hurt, both physically and emotionally. Mike, who sees Ken's injuries, rushes to find Billy. When Billy learns about the bullying Ken has been enduring, he is shocked and concerned. In a moment of vulnerability, Ken confides in Billy, admitting that he never wanted to move to this new town. He feels out of place, powerless, and embarrassed about his situation. Billy listens patiently and recognizes the pain and frustration that Ken is feeling. Wanting to help, Billy offers to teach Ken how to defend himself. That afternoon, Billy begins to train Ken. Instead of jumping straight into martial arts, Billy starts by having Ken do simple janitorial tasks around the school, such as cleaning toilets and taking out the trash. At first, Ken doesn't understand why he is being asked to do chores, but Billy explains that these tasks are about discipline, focus, and building inner strength. Slowly, they move on to more physical training, where Billy teaches Ken the basics of self-defense. Throughout their training sessions, Ken starts to grow stronger, both mentally and physically. Meanwhile, Ken opens up to Julie, telling her how much he wants to be friends with her, but is afraid of the consequences. He admits that Tom's bullying has made him feel weak, and he doesn't want to drag her into his troubles. Julie listens and tries to comfort him, but the threat of Tom and his crew still looms large over Ken's life. One night, after an intense training session, Ken finds himself face-to-face with Tom, who is eager to pick another fight. This time, Ken employs mainly defensive maneuvers, evading Tom's attacks. The fight escalates when Tom attempts a powerful crescent kick. In a surprising twist, Ken counters with a swift strike to Tom's groin and makes a quick escape. As he runs away, he encounters Kate, who insists he get into her car. She drives him to the dojo, which Ken learns is a front for an illegal martial arts competition. It's revealed that both Lee and Tom have been champions in these underground fights. Kate tries to persuade Ken to join the competition and offers him an advance, but he declines. The next day, Ken shares his experience with Billy, explaining the substantial money the fighters earn. This news frustrates Billy, who has been undercover to investigate the dojo. He finally opens up to Ken, revealing that he was once a police officer and expresses regret about leaving the force. Billy's motivation to take down the dojo stems from his concern for the young fighters involved. That night, Billy reunites with Spinelli at the dojo, but their investigation yields little evidence. As they exit, they are confronted by some of Lee's henchmen. In a tense moment, both Billy and Spinelli manage to fend off the attackers and escape safely. The following day, Lee discovers surveillance footage showing Billy at the dojo and becomes furious. He sends his men, James and another hitman, on a mission to find and eliminate Billy. Later that night, as Billy is leaving work, he is ambushed by the hitmen. Although he sustains injuries during the confrontation, he manages to fight back and ultimately escapes. Meanwhile, Julie, fed up with Tom's behavior, breaks up with him and reaches out to Ken, asking him to pick her up. They share a heartfelt conversation around a small bonfire where Julie inquires about Ken's interest in martial arts. Ken explains that he wants to stand up to Tom because he cares about her and wishes to take her away from his bullying grasp. Julie admits that Ken has already won her heart, leading to the start of a romantic relationship between them. The next morning, Ken arrives at the gym only to find it surrounded by police tape, raising his concerns that Billy might be involved in something serious. Meanwhile, Tom attempts to win Julie back, but she firmly reminds him of their breakup. Threatened by Tom's aggression, she warns him that if he touches her again, she will ensure that Ken deals with him. In a fit of rage, Tom slaps Julie, prompting Ken to intervene and push Tom away, warning him never to touch her again. Tom tries to assert control over Julie, claiming ownership, but Ken counters that no one owns anyone. Just as tensions rise, Rob and Gina step in to separate them. Ken decides he has had enough of Tom's bullying and accepts Tom's challenge to fight at Lee's dojo that Friday night. Determined to prepare for the fight, Ken trains rigorously without Billy's guidance and even starts teaching some martial arts moves to Mike, who is eager to learn. Meanwhile, Tom, fueled by his anger, takes out his frustrations on Rob, who is also tired of Tom's aggressive behavior. When fight night arrives, Julie is anxious, worried that Ken might get hurt. The atmosphere is electric as Tom and Ken exchange blows, thrilling the cheering crowd. Initially, Tom gains the upper hand, much to Lee's delight. However, just as it seems Tom might knock Ken out, Ken catches sight of Mike and Julie in the audience. This gives him a surge of determination. With renewed energy, Billy arrives just in time to witness the struggle, motivating Ken to start fighting back. As Ken begins to dodge Tom's attacks and counter with his own, he finally triumphs with a spectacular spinning kick, knocking Tom out cold. However, victory is short-lived. In a fit of rage, Lee takes out his frustration on Tom, landing brutal blows. Ken tries to intervene, but fails to stop Lee. Just then, Billy steps in, creating a showdown between him and Lee. The two engage in an intense battle, with Tom now surprisingly cheering for Billy. Lee resorts to underhanded tactics, whipping Billy with a belt and choking him. However, Billy fights back fiercely, declaring that he won't allow any more kids to be hurt. He executes the jump-spinning kick he had taught Ken, knocking Lee out. As the police arrive at the scene, Kate attempts to escape, but is intercepted by Mike, who stands his ground. Tom, finally realizing the error of his ways, offers his hand to Ken in a gesture of goodwill, but then hesitates, telling him he'll see him around. He thanks Billy for saving him, demonstrating a moment of growth. Ken shares a kiss with Julie, but their moment is interrupted by Mike, reminding them that it's time to go. Meanwhile, Spinelli is thrilled to learn that Billy plans to make a full return to the police force, setting the stage for a new chapter in their lives.